dead inside. That's how every Mets fan feels right now. Dead inside. It's not because of the fact that the New York Mets didn't just land Kyle Tucker. We knew that there was great reality that the Mets would not land Kyle Tucker, regardless of the absurd AAV. But this entire time, it felt like the Toronto Blue Jays were going to be that club. What was the one team this entire sweepstakes that stayed quiet the entire time? Was the one team that I told you guys all that not only am I fearful of, but if Kyle Tucker lands with the LA Dodgers, what is the point of even watching next season? And now we reach that crossroads because it has become a reality. Kyle Tucker says, you know what? I'm going to take short-term high AAV, probably not as much as I would get with the Mets, more deferrals, and no, I'm not going to have spring training in Florida like I would usually prefer as someone who's a Florida native, but I'm going to go ahead, rain chase with the Dodgers, bring them a three-peat, and then hit the market. That's exactly what is going to happen to a literal T. Mets fans, how we doing? It's a rhetorical question. I know you're feeling terrible right now. Not only am I gutted, but truthfully, I've reached the conclusion of my thought process this offseason that there's no which way, shape, or form that the New York Mets are going to be able to build a roster that I firmly believe is going to be able to get close to taking down this slaying this dragon. And I understand the Mets have so much more work to do. They have endless work to do on the front of actually building this roster the way that they need to. But the fact that the LA Dodgers not only brought in Edwin Diaz, but just brought in Kyle Tucker after winning back-to-back championships, genuinely speaking, unless you are a baseball fan that just loves baseball no matter what, no matter win, lose, or draw, you're locked in, I have to somehow try to muster to be locked in to cover this team for a living, as well as cover them in various different avenues, as we're going to have some major announcements coming here before the season starts, to be on the lookout, just to come to find out that the LA Dodgers have only gotten better in the end. Okay, we're going to talk about what is next for the New York Mets now after they've lost out on these Tucker sweepstakes. But when I tell you, everybody, that this was not for a lack of effort, oh my God, is that an understatement? Steve Cohen puts out on X over the past, hour or so, basically with a line referencing the Pope, stating how, that we see, let me know when there's smoke, essentially that we're just waiting on Tucker's decision. And now we have Tucker's decision. Not only did he not want to go to Queens and be a New York Met, at least as of now, but he decided to absolutely curb the Toronto Blue Jays aside because he, like every other top talent, is going to continue to go to the best team in baseball as long as the offer is there, as long as the opt-outs are present. That's more than likely exactly what is going to happen. I'm absolutely disgusted. Literally, baseball is so effing ruined. I'm convinced that this was made purposely so that way that we have an extensive lockout. Even though it's the schmuck small market owners that decide not to spend every year, which is why the Dodgers have now become who they are today. By taking advantage of these stupid markets. The Houston Astros should have never let Kyle Tucker walk, but they trade his ass in a rental year to the Cubs. Now Kyle Tucker, all of his elite talent, will perfectly slot into that corner outfield to upgrade from Michael Effing Conforto for the Dodgers that also has Mookie Betts, that also has Shohei Ohtani, that also has Freddie Freeman, that also has Max Muncy, that also has everyone and their mother, that also has an amazing bullpen, that also has an amazing star-studded rotation. Genuinely speaking, what is the point in trying to watch the baseball season if you were not an LA Dodgers fan? Absolutely disgusting. They did not need to do this, and yet, of course, they still did it. And I commend the Dodgers in the sense that if you're a top dog, you're going to do everything in your power to stay a top dog. You're going to do literally everything humanly possible to be a top dog. And while I understand that and can admire it, I certainly envy it. What is also true is that this is absolutely ruining the game of baseball. There's no other way to look at it. And I'm not saying that the big bad Dodgers, how dare they do such a thing. It's more so on the fact that we've allowed ourselves to bring ourselves to a major league that has now had a team separate themselves so significantly. You think of the Yankees back with Steinbrenner Sr. You think of all the heyday where you're spending stupid for their dynasty back in the day. This, you could rightfully argue, is 10 times worse. The Dodgers have taken advantage in every way imaginable. They've dominated the entire Japanese market thanks to Shohei Ohtani. And now they're bringing in any top talent that has the slightest sliver of an appetite to try to rain chase. And the thing is, no matter how much the New York Mets throw dollars, no matter how much the Toronto Blue Jays sell him on being with his best man from his wedding, Miles Straw, a former teammate, and George Springer as well, and going in Toronto where they absolutely did everything in their power to cater to him. It does not matter when you have a team as good as LA constantly separating themselves from the rest. This was the main outcome that I was most fearful of. This was the main outcome that I was most concerned of. I was relayed information over the past 3 hours stating that the Blue Jays were in third place in the betting. Third place was the Toronto Blue Jays in the end here regarding one Kyle Tucker. I heard initially a lot of skepticism on the front of the New York Mets from a credible source that has Jeff Passan on speed dial, so I know he knows exactly what he's talking about. I heard from 3 separate credible sources as well that the Mets felt very optimistic and they knew it wasn't for lack of effort in their offer. Absolutely. Then I find out from my source again that has Passan in his back pocket, stating to me, I kid you not, a half hour, not even before this news drops, that maybe he was wrong for doubting the Mets there, that very well they're in the thick of this and that it's really up in the air as to what's going to happen with Kyle Tucker. Well, now we have reached the conclusion. Kyle Tucker is going to the LA Dodgers, and oh my God, here's the contract. It's 4 years, $240 million. Are you fucking kidding me? Pardon my French, kiddos. How do we even do... Kiss the 2027 season goodbye, everybody. Not a chance in hell we're not going to have a massive effing lockout. Not a chance in hell we're not going to have one. Are you fucking kidding me? 4 years, $240 million, $60 million, $9 more million a year than Juan Soto's base salary. And the worst part is that you know that regardless of that amount, Mets fans are still going to give David Stearns and Steve Cohen shit. And for all we know, maybe the Mets went to 60. They may very well have done that. It wouldn't shock me. Oh my God, it's an opt-out after year 2. It's not even an opt-out after year 1. Oh my God. So Tucker's going to hit the market when he's 31 years of age and go for a $450+ million contract after he's won at least one championship with the Dodgers, because it is an absolute guarantee that he is going to. There's no doubt about it. If you're first chiming in, breaking news, Kyle Tucker is an LA Dodger. The New York Mets now have to properly pivot, and it goes without saying the pivot is headlined by Cody Bellinger. Anything less, and again, if I'm being completely honest with you, how much does it really matter? Like, this is so deflating. The amount of baseball fans are not going to have the interest to even get this season started now is, I know I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone by saying this. I know that I'm just one of thousands of baseball fans currently enraged that there's quite literally no point in watching what next season is going to be. The Mets can land Cody Bellinger. The Mets can trade for Freddie Peralta, but how much of a difference is it really going to make? It's a move like this that can literally change professions. I cover the Mets for a living. That's how difficult I'm having right now in trying to process my thoughts. Because it's one thing when you're going into a season when you're very cautiously optimistic. It's another when there is a team so blatantly, obnoxiously on another level talent-wise than everyone else on paper that it really is disheartening trying to get up to actually have interest in what they're trying to do here. An interest in actually going ahead and saying, you know what? Listen, anything can happen in a 162. That's absolutely true. But what are we doing? Like, genuinely, what are we doing? $60 million a year for Kyle Tucker at an 840 OPS this past season. $60 million a year for Kyle Tucker at 840 OPS last season. And mind you, the Dodgers didn't even need to do this, yet they still chose to do so. Actually at a loss for words. Actually disgusted. Actually enraged. I'm truly at a loss right now. But before we talk more about me being at a loss and what is next for this Mets team, in which I think it's safe to say that a lot of fans are really going to be completely tapped out on everything now moving forward. We're going to get excited when the Mets inevitably make moves, and they're absolutely going to go all in on Bellinger, I'm sure, and to a degree in the trade market. But this is just, wow. Shout out to our amazing sponsors at SeatGeek that have you covered for all of your ticketing needs. Don't bother buying baseball tickets right now because you don't have interest to do that if you're a Mets fan at the moment. But if you're an NFL fan, an NHL fan, or anything in the ticketing space separate from those Metsies, use our promo code WARDY10 for 10% off your next ticket purchase. Head over to Sleeper for all things fantasy and the sports game and utilize our promo code HMA, link down below, as well, separate from SeatGeek, also link down below, because you're going to get a 100% match up to $100 on your first deposit for anything and everything there in sports fantasy with their respective picks. Now, I just have to be completely honest to each and every one of you and say that I had a lot of cautious optimism and a lot of great skepticism as the day went on, and then built up back to optimism. And what makes this more worse than anything else is quite literally everyone was relaying to me that I knew that has connections and certainly is in the know that they're feeling optimistic about the Mets and that things aren't looking bad. So the fact to get that high yet again, to then drop as far down as we just did, oh my God. Literally, oh my God. Like, it's been gut punch after gut punch after gut punch after gut punch as a Mets fan this past calendar year. Since signing Juan Soto, everything has went downhill. And please do not misquote that. I'm not saying that Soto is the issue. Soto's the best high that we have had in the past calendar year plus. We have not had anything remotely close to be excited about since then. And listen, we're also spoiled brats. There are many fan bases that don't have the luxury of even getting close to being in the conversations that the Mets are constantly in. And I completely understand that. But when you're a diehard fan of a club and you're desperately seeking a championship and you're desperately seeking success, and you still now have to try to muster up and try to build your own confidence in your club, when no matter how much they do to build this team, the likelihood that they're going to be able to put out a product that's realistically going to be able to go toe-to-toe with the Dodgers really has yet to be seen. But the idea that they're going to be able to get anything close to match what LA is more than likely not going to happen. This is the type of move the Mets needed to do. And I say need because the LA Dodgers are the type of baseball club to go out of their way and land a Hall of Fame, an MVP, or an all-star caliber player in literally every single position. That's a very notable thing. And the Mets brought in someone like Kyle Tucker. They would have the two most expensive outfielders in baseball, two of the best outfielders in baseball, mind you, from an offensive standpoint. And that's the Dodgers' way, because that is how the Dodgers build. And I know it was not for lack of effort on the Mets' hand here, because again, they offered over $50 million AAV, and the Dodgers went to 60. The Dodgers literally went to 60. Like what? Like what? Sorry, everybody. I'm just on my phone right now because I'm double checking. I know I got a lot of donations I'm going to get into. But all right, guys, on a scale of 1 to 10, universally, let me know your level of disappointment right now. On a scale of 1 to 10, spam in the live chat. Let me know in the comments down below. What is your level of disappointment? I was most fearful that the Dodgers were going to be the winners in these sweepstakes in the end. Pardon me. I'm saying that wrong. I was most fearful of the Toronto Blue Jays throughout this entire process because the Blue Jays had the writing on the wall. He met them in Dundon at the spring training facilities in early December. But the one thing that also I bared in mind with the Blue Jays this entire time is mainly the fact that if he wanted Toronto, it probably would have happened already, right? You know, he doesn't need to have a long-term contract. And when you have teams throwing absurd AAV, so significant that regardless of the taxation, it simply does not matter. You know, you back yourself in a corner and you look at Kyle Tucker, and if you're Kyle, how can you say no to such a thing? Like, literally, how can you say no to $60 million a year with an opt-out after the second year where you may very well not even opt out of that contract? He may very well play that contract out and then that be that. Or then play that contract out and then hit the market again. Because 4 years from now, Kyle Tucker will only be age 32, 33. He very well could still get a pretty payday after the fact. With deferrals, I want to see what the deferrals are on this. Hold on. And I know we got a lot of donations. I promise I will get to all of them, everybody. And we'll talk about what is next for the Mets, but obviously we're still sharing our initial raw reactions to this. So my apologies for that. I'm just breaking it down in real time. Try not to cry myself to sleep tonight. Oh my God, here's the graphic from Bleacher Report. I want to chuck my phone, throw out, literally, like, oh my God. And here's more details from Jeff Passan. I want to break something right now. Let's calm down. Kyle Tucker's 4-year, $240 million contract with the LA Dodgers includes opt-outs after the second and third seasons. Sources tell ESPN. An enormous windfall for the best free agent available. I'm waiting to find out the deferrals on this contract, as I've heard rumblings that the deferrals on the offer for Kyle Tucker are absolutely absurd. And if he's making $60 million a year, how much of this is deferred, do you think? My honest guess is that half the contract is deferred. I could be completely wrong. That would go in hand with everything else this offseason, sadly. But that is my guess until we find out. Yeah, guys, no, I'm disgusted. But what good is it going to do for me to come out here screaming my head off the entire time? Seriously. I had a mental expectation that Tucker would not come to the Mets. So that I was always mentally prepared for. But I was not mentally prepared enough for him to go to LA. You're fearing it. You don't expect it. You don't think it's going to happen. And now it's happened. Now it's right in front of our face. 90% deferred. Wouldn't shock me. Would not shock me at all. Hit that like and subscribe button on your way, everybody. Breaking news. Kyle Tucker is an LA Dodger. And as a Mets fan, I'm dead inside. I said that when Edwin Diaz initially landed there with the Dodgers. And I'm saying it even more, and I'm doubling down on it. I am so distraught as a baseball fan in general right now that I really don't... the fact that I have to cover baseball for a living now, still, for the next number of days, months, years, however the case may be, like this just... the immediate future of everything right now is just having my mind spinning, absolutely spinning. Like, this is just so disheartening. Like, that's my biggest takeaway. I'm just so upset. Like, I'm genuinely just so bummed out that knowing that it's just such a significant gap. It is such a significant gap. In the same time frame that Steve Cohen buys the New York Mets, and Mets fans finally have something to be excited about. Finally have a big market owner that actually spends like a big market owner. You finally get that in position. And right as the New York Mets finally start to establish themselves with a new absurdly rich owner is the exact same beginning of the timeline of the LA Dodgers building what they have now built. They have been a tremendous team for the past 10 to 15 years. Plus, there is no denying that. But what the Dodgers have done the past 4 to 5 seasons in particular has been most notable. Freeman has won scorched earth from Ohtani to Yamamoto to Glasnow to Snell to Freeman, to Betts, to everyone in between, to now obviously Kyle Tucker. You have to not only commend what the Dodgers do, but why couldn't this have happened in a different time frame? Like, that's what hurts so much about this. Because I think of Lindor's prime. I think of Soto's prime. And I just think of how can the New York Mets position themselves in a way to make sure that this will not be as lopsided as it appears. Because, of course, even with the Dodgers being as talented as they are on paper, anything can naturally happen in the course of the season and postseason. But the Dodgers were able to cruise throughout the regular season with many major injuries to their rotation without a problem, with an offense that dragged its feet in postseason because it did not matter because their rotation was healthy and geared up and did what they needed to do by then. When you have the endless options that the Dodgers do, you can handle significant losses without losing sleep over it. If the Mets have any of their top players out for a period of time, it's a massive hurting. It's a massive problem. That's the case for most teams in baseball. But it is more than likely not the case, and it will not be the case for the LA Dodgers. A lot of comments. Buckle up. Let's get to this. Greg Tassick, $2. There's smoke, all right. Our team is going up in flames. It's not going up in flames because listen, this contract is literally like, I don't even know how else to put it into words. I feel like the Mets would have probably went there if they didn't go there. I'm sure he probably just preferred to go to LA between the two. Because think about it. If the Mets offered a contract north of $60 million AAV, which we don't have clarity on yet, but I'm sure in the next 12 to 24 hours, we are going to find out a lot more information on how this happened. I'm sure we're going to exclusives from Mike Puma or John Heyman or Joel Sherman from the New York Post stating that this is where the Mets were at in the end, and they put in a heavy effort, but in the end, Kyle Tucker wanted a rain chase just like Edwin Diaz. That is what this reeks of. And here's the thing. You can't blame Kyle Tucker. You can't blame him at all for wanting that. But what does this mean? It's the demise of the entire sport as we know it. That is quite literally where we're at. We are in the end game. I said the end game yesterday regarding the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes, but no, we're in the end game now of Major League Baseball ever being the same, because the imprint that the Dodgers are now going to have on the 2026 season, that'll inevitably cause a massive lockout more than likely for 2027, is absolutely disgusting. And it really is painful if you were a fan of any other team in the game not named LA. D-Train with the $5 holla says, David Stearns' smug face makes me angry. I'm not mad we lost on Tucker. I'm mad that we all, that talent walked for nothing. Yeah, and listen, it was really justified to trade Brandon Nimmo to a degree, allow Pete Alonso to walk if you were bringing in Kyle Tucker. You still aren't overly upset if you land Cody Bellinger. And I told you guys on numerous occasions, Bellinger's the better immediate fit for this Mets team. And I absolutely stand by that. And I will continue to stand by that. That is not the problem here. Because if the Mets land Bellinger, I will be very happy. But everything that I will be happy about this offseason will kind of reach a moot point once I remind myself, oh yeah, the LA Dodgers exist. Because the LA Dodgers are the only team that we needed to not make this move happen. And yet they did exactly that. There's only so much you can do when a team consistently separates themselves from the pack the way that they have. RK with a $2 holla. How good will it feel to beat them in the NLCS? If the Mets effed around and beat the Dodgers in the NLCS this year, I think I would cry so long with tears of joy you have no idea. Even if they lost in the World Series. Like, getting past that behemoth, climbing that mountain, and being on top of Everest and actually slaying the dragon would be electric. But my God, guys, we don't even have a starter added this offseason. Let's pump the brakes before we worry about kicking their ass in the LCS, which is more than likely not going to happen. Edwin Castro with a $2 holla. MLB, how's Cohen ruining baseball again? Exactly. You see how the Steve Cohen tax starts with Steve, even though the Dodgers are the club that's actively ruining the game today, as we continue to see. And don't get me wrong, it's not just the Dodgers. The Dodgers are a byproduct of the pieces of shit owners that we have small market that have now allowed the Dodgers to cultivate the roster that they've had. Because if the Astros decide to spend on Tucker, which they should have from the beginning, if the Rays decide to spend on Glass now to a degree, if Blake Snell was spent on by the Rays, or even, I don't know, after the fact, with the Padres, if, we can continue to go down the laundry list, if the Boston Red Sox and John Henry wasn't an absolute schmuck and actually paid Mookie Betts, if the Atlanta Braves weren't ridiculous and allowed their homegrown talent, their captain, walk, this would not be the LA Dodger team that we are currently talking about. So as much as I am pissed off and am disgusted and disheartened that the Dodgers have built what they have now built, let's not forget how they've gone to this point. And how they've gone to this point has been in direct hand with every other team setting them up to become who they are today. All these have factored into what the Dodgers are. So both things can be true. The Dodgers have absolutely ruined things in more ways than one, and the small market owners have done a tremendous job at making this become what it is now. Absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Would Dodgers trade Tio to the Mets? Doubt it, but he'd be interested. Tio being dealt, I would say, has a slightly greater likelihood now, no doubt, because they don't need Tio at all. They absolutely don't need him, and I think he becomes expendable now. But here's the thing. What, we're going to trade for the Dodgers sloppy seconds after they dump him and don't need him anymore because he just upgraded the position? Like, no. Scott with the $10 holla. How can the rich New York Mets constantly be the bridesmaids? Because unfortunately, the LA Dodgers have what the Mets didn't. That's a track record of consistent winning throughout the regular season, consistent playoff performances, consistent dominance of the NL West, well before Steve Cohen even got to the point of sniffing the idea of becoming owner for the New York Mets. And just to share some more context, Steve Cohen back in 2012 tried to become the owner of the LA Dodgers and put in a significant bid. He did not win the bidding in the end, but he did put in a fairly valiant effort to land and own the Dodgers. And the reason for that is because Cohen, who obviously has a residence there in Cali, he's all over the place because he's north of $30 billion in net worth, he really admired the Dodgers going back to the Brooklyn Dodgers times especially. And that was something that he initially tried to do before buying the Mets. He first tried to buy the Dodgers. Yes, that's a fact. Look it up in case you guys don't believe me. So fast forward all these years later, after not being able to land the Dodgers, he lands the Mets, the club that not only he grew up a fan of, but also that his wife and his father-in-law absolutely admire. And that was heavy hand in Steve Cohen going out of his way to buy this New York Mets team. It's just a timeline issue right now, everybody. It's a massive timeline issue. The Mets don't have the track record of success. They don't have the pedigree. They don't have anything. And that's why losing miserably the way that they did in 2025 will continue to hurt them in more ways than one. That is what I cannot stand about David Stearns still. It's not that David is at fault for everything. He's not at fault for players that get injured, but he's at fault for being not progressive, but conservative with his decision-making throughout the season last year. A rotation that had so many question marks, yet he still bought in and didn't do anything to properly dress him until it was too late. And an offense that clearly needed a change with the effing hitting coach, in which Eric Chavez supposedly even said mid-season he was debating on the idea of just going up to Stearns and just basically saying I quit because he knew that things were not looking good offensively. No clutch gene with that team all year long. I had to cover every single effing game of this sorry club. I had to cover so much of them under Cohen to this point. And this is the thanks that we get in return. Holy shit. Stearns has already shown he's not in it to win it. Money is not the only factor. Players also want to win championships. Stearns has got to go. Oh, no. That's not how this works. Stearns is not going to go anywhere right now. What I will say, I'll say this though comfortably. If the Mets don't have a winning season in 2026, David Stearns should not be the president of this club in 2027. I'll absolutely say that. No doubt about it. I don't care that the LA Dodgers are as good as they are. If you're David Stearns, you should still be doing everything in your power to make sure that this is a very good ball club next season. It's not going to be as good as the Dodgers on paper because no one else is going to be. But do everything in your power to do what you can with what's still available and what's obviously available in the trade market still. If you decide not to, okay. Then we know that we're just going to cruise through 2026 and not give a flying you know what. And then I'll have that mentality. And I'll approach every single night by saying, oh, yay, fun, the Mets won. Not like it's going to mean anything in a couple months, but yay, the Mets won today. Yeah, absolutely. If the Mets do not have a winning season in 2026, David Stearns should not be the president of the organization beyond that point. Wardy, you're absolutely going to hate this, but I want a salary cap now because I don't care anymore. What's the point anymore? There needs to be a floor, and I understand wanting a cap because money is clearly not enough for the New York Mets to prize certain talents. But again, it comes down to them building success. They have to build success. Hot, thank you for the $5 haul. I appreciate that so much. Let's see here. Frank Sessis says, Happy New Year, Wardy. Happy New Year to you too, Frank, even though I'm not happy right now. Xavier, great member, 12 months. Wardy, what the F? How are the Dodgers able to afford this? I don't support a salary cap, but deferrals need to be fixed because this is ridiculous. Oh, it's absolutely absurd. There's no denying that. And if you guys do find out information, of course, John Heyman says that the Mets and Yankees have checked in on Peralta, and that Peralta had approached Milwaukee regarding an extension, but Brewers prefer to avoid huge deals for pitchers. So literally just reiterating exactly what we've already known. The Mets and the Yankees have been in the market for Peralta for literally since the start of the offseason. We don't give a literal shit about that right now. Okay. But nice way to try to evade from the terrible news today. Oh yeah, let's give you a nice little piece. So, yeah, the Mets have been in the market for the same player they've been in the market of since the offseason began. Hard-hitting news. Love to see that. Okay. We see CD with the $5 holla. This will just further cement how misguided it was to let Pete walk. Way bigger home run and RBI guy than Tucker. It has less to do about home runs and RBIs and more about a plate approach and overall team fit. Bear that in mind. Tucker could have gone in for 5-1-8. Listen, the Mets never wanted Pete Alonso back, regardless of the Tucker sweepstakes. Take that for what it is, whether you agree or disagree with it. I can only imagine how upset and disappointed both Stearns and Cohen are right now, though. Because I know that they absolutely unloaded the dump truck, and it still wasn't enough. Still wasn't even close to enough, apparently. Mav with the $5 haul. Cohen is going to sell the team after his casino's up and running LO. Take his chances with his casino that competing with the Dodgers won't happen. Thank you for the donation. Thomas, thank you for becoming a member here. I really appreciate that. My dog, Patrick, I love you, Pat. Wardy, LA. Here's the thing. If I didn't have a bias, if I didn't have a fandom with covering the Mets, like if I was like a legit reporter that was covering them because, I'm being paid from someone greater to do so, but I don't really have any fan bias, I would absolutely switch and cover the Dodgers right now. And you want to know why? It has nothing to do with the amazing Mets fans I have here. So bear that in mind. Take away the following that I have and take away all the awesome relationships that I have with you guys. Let's put that aside and act like that didn't exist for a minute. And let's act as if I was a legit normal reporter that covered the Mets for a living. If I had the opportunity to flip and start covering the Dodgers, I would have done it over a year ago, without a doubt. I would have started, as a matter of fact, when Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto signed with the LA Dodgers. No doubt. There's so much money in covering the LA Dodgers, the same way that there's so much money that the Dodgers are actively spending. Anyone and everyone that is in the Dodgers space is reaping the benefits tremendously by everything that's continuing to go on with them. My buddy D-Mac, who is literally the biggest Dodgers YouTuber on the planet at Dodgers Nation, good buddy of mine, and he's literally on the beat for the Dodgers, is always in their pressers. He has full media access and everything. He is living lavish right now. How can you not be if you're covering the Dodgers? So yeah, a Wardy LA absolutely would be a thing if I didn't have my Mets fandom making sure that doesn't happen. But win, lose, or draw, you can't just cut fandom, and that's not something I'm going to do. Mario, great member of 8 months. Greater than Bobby Bonilla levels of deferred. Oh, very well could be. Hey, Jack, great member of 42 months. Love you, my guy. Thank you so much for being in here. Long time. Appreciate you. Let's go up here for a second, everybody. And then we're going to talk more on Bellinger in this one, and we'll cut things off for replay viewers after that, or maybe just before it. We'll see. I don't even know how to feel, Wardy. What's the point? I understand. You're not alone. BB with a $5 holiday. Deferrals are an option available to every team. Why are Dodgers only ones willing to do it? It's not that they are the only ones willing to do it. It's the fact that they are a club that is willing to throw absurd dollars when they know that they're a desirable location. So they don't need to do any selling on why you should go to the Dodgers. It just comes down to payout structure for them. The reason why they constantly do their heavy deferrals is because of how many massive contracts they have on the roster naturally. That's how they have to go. You have to realize the Mets may very well have approached Tucker with deferrals. There's a belief that the Mets maybe even approach Tucker without deferrals. It would be more attractive without deferrals for a player naturally, unless you are going the Shohei Ohtani route, which is deferring $700 million because you know your ass is not going to be residing in LA by the time those deferrals kick in, and you're going to reap the benefits of all of that while you're either back in Japan or a different part of the country when you don't need to deal with nearly the level of taxation. So there's different reasons for why these decisions are made. But yes, every team can do deferrals. But if anything, deferrals can turn off a player unless you have a player like Ohtani going out of his way to say, no, I prefer it. And there's the reasons why he prefers it is because he's trying to avoid the taxes, naturally. Broken Jester, great member of 9 months. The Dodgers can beat the other 29 teams combined. I wish you were lying. Liability, Chuda Hala, Bellinger, 3 years, 125. Literally just give him an absurd bag. Get it done. Short term, though. Juan Papo, $5 Hala. Breaking, WardyNYM to LA Dodgers. 2 years, $80 million with 90% deferred. I'm sorry, Wardy. He's not worth that money. Let him go. They need a cap. We'll see, Juan Papo. Thank you so much for the donation. And it's nice knowing you guys now that I've officially signed with the LA Dodgers. At least I'm getting a pretty payday. I know that you guys aren't, but at least I am now that I'm officially a LA Dodger. No handle, $5 holla. Players talk Alonso and Tucker are Florida boys. Won't be surprised he told Tucker how trash Mets locker room and got. And hey, here's what I will say. Do not be surprised if the New York Mets go after Kyle Tucker again in 2 years. Don't be shocked by that. It very well will happen, especially if Tucker has amazing offensive numbers, which you know he's going to, an absurdly deep lineup, the deepest lineup in baseball. You think Tucker isn't going to ball out? Of course he is. He absolutely is. Matthew Martell says, not only Diaz, but Tucker. No words, I genuinely don't know if we can finish this offseason strong enough to be happy about where we are. Michael Guido, thank you so much for becoming a franchise member. I greatly appreciate that. God bless you and your family. Thank you kindly. Thank you. Hey, Jack, great member with the $10 Hall says, my good friend is a Dodger fan. I'm in hell more ways than one. Hope we get Belly and a starter, and I'm just going to enjoy my team as much as I can, but man, am I disappointed. Mike with the $5 Hall says, I'm seeing some reports that it's 4 years, $120 million with another $120 million deferred. And that turns out to be true. This is ruining baseball. That would exactly point out what I said. I think half this contract is going to be deferred. I think he's going to be making $30 million a year with the other 30 being deferred per season. That's my guess. I guess the smoke is coming from the Mets fans' ears. That is true, Edwin, sadly. Great member. Dixie with the $2 holla. Wait until Scooble goes here next year. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They might F around and trade for Scooble this offseason. Why not? Why not just go ahead and continue to land every top player in baseball? Because who cares anymore, right? Genuinely, who gives a flying you-know-what? Kobe says with the $10 holla, unfortunately, Stearns thinks he is the smartest person in the room as he keeps looking for bargains. While I understand what you're saying, Stearns did not approach this at all in a bargain manner. So I'm going to disregard that comment. Thank you for it, though. I appreciate it. I understand that in context with other circumstances, but I don't regarding the Tucker pursuit because that's just simply not true. Matthew, thank you again. Cap doesn't make sense. Dodgers already got what they wanted. A super team, a cap would just handicap the other teams, or the cap would be $400 million. You're not wrong. Mark with the $2 holla says, let me go back up here to Mark. Apologies, everybody. I think the Mets do something big to end bad. Of course they're going to do big moves. But here's the thing. Regardless of what the Mets do that's big, can they do anything realistically in the trade market when it comes to adding offensive talent that's going to be able to be a greater upgrade over Cody Bellinger? I highly doubt that until proven otherwise. I really highly doubt that. Sports Zach, where do we go now, bro? I can't believe this. John, great member of 20 months. Not sure there is a pivot from this. Darren, great member of 9 months. Tough night. Keep your head up, Mets fans. Javi Polanco, $2 holla. Thank you so much. Michael, thank you so much for gifting the 5 memberships. I greatly appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Shout out to Michael for gifting the memberships to everyone in the chat. What a beauty he is for that. Josh with the $2 holla. Now, what if the Phils sign? And seriously, Michael, thank you so much. I really appreciate those gifted. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Congratulations to all that just became members on the platform. What if it's Phil sign Bichette and Billy the Yanks? That very well could happen. Oh, yeah. This offseason can continue to get worse. Absolutely. Montari says with the $5 holla, and you want to know what sucks? My Wardy MLB video with my thumbnail on my free agent predictions has Tucker in a Dodger uniform, and I hate the fact that that was right in the end. Son of a... that pisses me off. How do we flip the script and become an attractive destination with a winning track record? No one wants to come here. Because you need to start by building up in your organization with a great farm and actually building sustained success. You don't need to be the best team in the NL East every year, but you need to build a sustainability that you're going to be a winning organization that's going to be pushing for playoffs and making playoffs on a yearly basis. The Mets have not consistently made playoffs in back-to-back seasons in literally what feels like forever. Literally. The Mets haven't made playoffs in back-to-back seasons since 2015, 2016. It's been a effing decade. You want to know what's happened over the past decade and all those years? The Dodgers have made playoffs every single season. They've won multiple World Series. And they've been in multiple World Series. Where do you check Marino? I will. All these small markets create this abomination. Absolutely. Tito with the $5 holla says, I say let the kids show us what they can do. There's no competing against the Dodgers. Belly won't make a difference. MLB is a joke right now. That's one way to look at it. Check Marino. We'll check Marino. Hold on. Nothing new from Marino there, so I'm not sure exactly what you were referring to. And anyone blaming Cohen or Stearns just doesn't get it. If the Dodgers, it's the Dodgers. They get like 9 owners in the ownership. If anything, MLB needs, a Guggenheim tax. Thank you so much for that donation. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I think we all understand. The MLB season is doomed until it's not doomed. And when I say season, I really mean postseason, right? Because even if the Dodgers just curb stomp everyone in the regular season, playoffs is a different animal. But how do you slay this dragon? Like, it really feels like it's going to be near impossible to do it. Check Jim. Who's Jim? Jim as in ball cap? I don't know what you're referring to there. I apologize. You You can't just say check Jim and not provide any great context from that. There's no guy with the name Jim that has that's known for being on the beat anywhere, from my understanding. But I don't know why I'm entertaining this. Okay. Oh, Jim Duquette. My bad. That's on me. All right. Let's see what Jim Duquette says. Mets offer to Tucker may have ended up higher than Soto's $51 million AAV, but it doesn't matter at this point. Likely pivot to Bellinger, since he's still available after the Yankees are currently at a stalemate after 2.5 months. And here's the thing, everybody. Let's not forget, before the Tucker sweepstakes really started to heat up, what was true? It was wide reporting that the Mets preferred Bellinger over Tucker. And yet they still did everything in their power to land Tucker, so it wasn't for a lack of effort there. But now that Tucker's off the board, let's stop talking about that schmuck, because he's not going to be a New York Met now, okay? Let's talk about what the pivot is going to be, and it has to start with Cody Bellinger, okay? There have been people stating how they think Lars Nootbaar might be a greater reality, maybe a Brennan Doyle from the Rockies, who has a lot of upside and is an elite defender, no doubt, but, like, again, apples and oranges here, just not the same thing. Cody Bellinger is the only player out there that is not only a slam dunk fit for the New York Mets, but is someone that can absolutely help fill the void of not landing Tucker and would still be an upgrade over Brandon Nimmo. He is the only player in the free agent market that checks off those boxes. The only one. Literally the only one. In the trade market, it's different. Would the Padres have an appetite to trade Fernando Tatis Jr.? But this is where we're getting absolutely crazy with our thought processes on how can we do something to separate ourselves from others. You're really not going to be able to. But the Mets still need to build a good roster for next season, regardless on how dog everyone else appears versus the Dodgers. So Cody Bellinger is that guy. And for those that don't pay attention to Cody Bellinger, let me enlighten you. He is exactly the profile that the Mets have been salivating at the mouth for if it wasn't going to be Kyle Tucker. And it does appear that they went higher than Soto's AAV to try to land Tucker, which is just absolutely effing insane. Literally insane. Here's Bellinger's numbers that you guys see beside me, as well as what's linked down below. Belly, of course, 29 home runs, 98 RBIs, a 272 average, 334 on base, 40 slug. And for those that say, oh, but Bellinger had a 200 difference in his OPS from home to away. Well, one, no shit, Sherlock, because he's at the bandbox at Yankee Stadium pulling to short porch right side without a problem half the season. And secondly, buddy, you want to know what Francisco Lindor's OPS was on the road? Yeah, it was just as bad. At home, he had 1,000 for the most part. On the road, he had 600. It was even effing worse. Okay, Lindor was so Jekyll and Hyde on the road this past year, he made Cody Bellinger look much better. Brett Beatty, another one to a far lesser degree when it comes to player profile, also struggled mightily from his home to road splits. Home and road splits only mean so much when you're really looking at that as an end-all be-all. But the New York Mets, if they brought in Cody Bellinger, naturally he would perform solid at Citi Field because he would play at Citi Field more than he would anywhere else. He would get adjusted there. Same way that he got adjusted in the Bronx. The same way that he initially got adjusted in Wrigley. The same way that he was adjusted in LA. But it's not just the offensive numbers with Cody Bellinger that are enticing, that are very much in line with what you'd expect with someone like Brandon Nimmo, for example. But the offensive upside isn't obviously as strong, as we know, as Kyle Tucker. However, what is true, though, is that if you land Cody Bellinger, he checks off so many boxes for you that you can get so creative still about the remainder of your offseason. We just talked about Jim Duquette in his post. Don't worry. We're already on that. Don't you guys worry. But outs above average, 93rd percentile, 91st in arm value, 83rd in arm strength, 72nd in sprint speed for Cody Bellinger. Belly, I cannot emphasize this enough. If the Mets do not land Cody Bellinger, then I don't see a world that they're going to be landing any outfielder that's going to have us absolutely jumping for joy. Like, guys would be fun to land, whether it's, varying degrees of players out there in the trade market, but there are very few that you look at that you're like, oh yeah, that this would be a massive needle mover for the club. Bellinger still has the potential to do that for this club, and him having success in the Bronx is notable because the Mets would love to bring in guys that can handle New York. Also, another thing to bear in mind, maybe Kyle Tucker is a little, you know what, and doesn't want to be in the New York market. If that's true, there's nothing the Mets can do about that. Literally nothing. But what I love most about Cody Bellinger, for those that don't know, and I talk about him all the time when I say this, well, the Mets outbid the Yankees for Bellinger. That's what Buster Olney just said. Yeah, again, that's what we're all waiting to see. Will the Mets outbid the Yankees for Bellinger now? And if the Mets approach Bellinger with absurd AAV with opt-outs, I think that's going to happen. Truthfully, I do think that's going to happen. Even if the Mets don't land him, I think they're absolutely going to approach him with absurd AAV, shorter term, with opt-outs. That is my expectation with Bellinger, but maybe they do go a little bit longer. Not entirely sure. I just know that what I love so much about Cody Bellinger as a player profile is the fact that he can play left, center, right, and first base on the back of his hand without a problem and do it at a quality rate and allow the Mets to get very creative. So what you would do is, for the days that Cody Bellinger would say have himself playing at first base, Jorge Polanco goes to DH. When Bellinger's in the outfield, Polanco gets more reps at first base. This is the route that the Mets need to go down if they want to still salvage, in my opinion, their offseason quite a bit. And I'm not saying that they can't make big moves separate from Cody Bellinger, because they absolutely can. Of course they can. We all know this. But this is the kind of move that's always made sense for the organization that we have said time and time again. And Ken Rosenthal says it's unlikely we outbid the Yankees for Belly. Okay. Again, though, to be determined, because you want to know something? Ken didn't have any of this regarding the LA Dodgers, okay? So take that with a massive grain of salt, just like you should take most reporting with a massive grain of salt, okay? Did Ken have any heads up or scoops on the LA Dodgers? No, he most certainly did not. He was completely out of the loop on this, just like what was the case for most reporters in Major League Baseball. Even Wolf Salmon did not have anything on this really ahead of time that he was at least able to publicly relay. Bear that in mind. This was not a sweepstakes where the reporters had much of an advantage at all. Garchomp with the $5 haul. Thank you so much. Let's see. Wards, if Belly will drop to 4 years and the Yankees reciprocate, he will 100% be a Yankee. Listen, I'm not saying you're wrong. All I'm saying is the Mets, I'd assume now, are going to continue to be pursuing Bellinger because they've been in his market for a while. And if they decide not to go after Bellinger, then that tells you all you need to know. Remember when they made attacks for Cohen? Yeah, sadly I do. And let's go ahead here and let's check out exactly what Ken said here in his article. Let's just break it down briefly. Very briefly. And while I do that, you guys can watch some Cody Bellinger highlights in the meantime. So, enough of the Kyle Tucker. Oh my God, dude. You have no idea how much it sucks to talk about one player consistently for like a month to 2 months on end, and then that your favorite team doesn't land that player. You guys get bothered by the rumors. How do you think I feel as someone that has an obligation to cover every aspect of them, and you're left with your hopes up 9 times out of 10? It sucks so much. It really does. But Ken Rosenthal stated the following, everybody. I don't need to read this stuff. While the idea of carrying two $50 million corner outfielders seemed ill-conceived, particularly when neither is an above-an-average defender, what the heck will the Mets do now that they failed to land Tucker? To sign Bellinger, the next best free agent outfielder, they would need to beat the Yankees' 5-year offer for between $155 million and $160 million without deferrals. That seems unlikely given the Mets' preference for shorter deals, but to a degree, they have backed themselves into a corner, which is why Tucker was practically a must-have. And that is why I think the Mets are going to give Tucker such absurd money per year that it's not, if I'm being completely honest, here's what I think. And I could be wrong in this, obviously. I think the New York Mets, if they are really going to heavily pursue Cody Bellinger, are going to give Cody Bellinger a contract offer of, at minimum, $40 million a year just like what Alex Bregman got with the Boston Red Sox a year ago, with opt-outs after every single season on, say, a 3 or 4 year contract. That's what I anticipate to happen. That is what I expect. And the Mets really are going to be going all in on Bellinger. That's the natural pivot, to be determined if that's going to be the case. But I think the Mets are going to give a massive overpay on average annual value to Cody Bellinger to try to get this done. And I know that's nasty, but so is $60 million a year to Kyle Tucker. Everything's nasty right now. Everything is. And here's what lies the problem. Bo Bichette again may very well, actually scratch that. Bo Bichette's going back to the Toronto Blue Jays, okay? Until we find out that he goes to the Philadelphia Phillies, I think he's Toronto bound. Now, could the Toronto Blue Jays swoop in and try to land Cody Bellinger? That very well may happen now too. Another wrinkle in this that we have to bear in mind. There's a lot of different ways to go about this and how Bellinger's market is now going to materialize. But if the Mets are going to be committed to Bellinger like we know they have been before this offseason, fully expect this market to heat up fast. It is absolutely going to. There is no doubt about it whatsoever. Robert with $2 Hollow says, is it worth going for it? Dodgers are unbeatable. Listen, you can say that it's not worth it. I feel that way to a degree right now, naturally, as a disheartened fan. But you need to put out a product when you have Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor and the payroll that the Mets already have. You cannot settle for less. You simply can't. You have to go in next year, giving some of your top prospects major looks because they deserve it, as well as really going after the best players that you possibly can. Source confirms the Mets offer was 4 years, $220 million. That I'll probably keep in the show then. Absolutely. After I cut this up and everything. There's the official details, everybody. The Mets went 4 years, $220. That's a shit ton of money. That's a stupid ton of money. Let's do the math. $55 million a year.